Welcome to a milk market tidbit for the March federal milk marketing order data that the USDA released over the weekend here. This is Dr. Lawrence Jones, and I'm recording this Sunday morning, April the 14th. So here's a big overview of the data that I've been looking at. The statistical uniform price across the country were $18.60, up 46 cents. So that's good news. There's still significant Class 4 depooling, as there will be for quite a while. The pooled Class 1 was actually down, and orders must not depool of Class 1. So all of the Class 1 milk always is in the pool if they're in a federal order. And the Class 4 was actually up just a little bit, which surprised me, but not anything significant. Month over milk production was up, and that's going to be a point that I'm going to try to make here. And then percent fat was down just a little bit, and that's expected for this time of year. All right, so here's the data. These are the statistical uniform prices. Say last month were $18.15, so that's up. And if we draw a line here, everything to the east of the line was over 20, and everything to the west of the line was under 20, with Minnesota, Wisconsin being the lowest at 1670. But what interests me more than anything is how did everything change? And so again, we were up 46 cents. And down here in the southeast, which is very high Class 1, we're all up 50, 60 cents, and that's partly because Class 1 was up 81 cents. Some of the other regions are up because of Class 3 was up 26 cents, so Minnesota, Wisconsin. But then other areas are not up nearly as much because they've depooled all of the very high value Class 4. And if we look at the future contracts as of Friday for the next 12 months, this is Class 4. We're going to be depooling in all orders that can depool for quite a while because it's at least $2, at times almost $3 above Class 3. And I think that's the new normal, where Class 4 is higher than Class 3. If we look at how Class 4 changed, again, not very much except for Order 7. Georgia was up 8.8%. A part of that is they're small to begin with, but they did increase their Class 4. Then what I like to look at is how did the production change a month over month. So across everybody, it's up about 1.8%. Now, part of that is the fact that a little bit of Class 4 was not depooled. So we always have to come back and ask the question, if we only look at 1, 2, and 4 without 3, that's up over 2%. And then if we look at 1, 2, and 3 without 4, it's 1 and change. What's interesting is Texas is up 2.1%. Now, they could have been bringing milk in from other regions. And you can see this Order 7 was up 10%. Again, they can bring milk in from other regions or, in fact, having higher production, because this is plant-based information, not farm-based. Minnesota, Wisconsin was down just a little bit, while Order 33 was up almost 10%. And again, was milk flowing into that new cheese plant out of these regions. So this is an overview of how the different classes look. And again, overall, we're up just a little bit. If we look at USDA month over month, they typically have March about 1.3% increase over February. So my best guess, given everything I've looked at so far, is going to be a little bit lower than what USDA normally is, up about 1.2%. That gives us a value about 19.6 billion pounds of milk. And that's a 1.2% decrease year over year. So it's going to be interesting, again, if you look at that as year over year, it might be seen as very bullish. If you look at it month over month, it might actually be a little bit bearish. And how does that come together? This is what it looks like. This is the projection. It's up from February, again, down from last year. But if you kind of draw a line across here, I keep coming back to the fact that we've probably straightened out this trend line for the last 4 years on a whole lot of things in the dairy industry right now. And there seems to be a transition point that occurred really at the end of 2020 sometime. This is the class 4. We're depooling 76% of it. This was their maximum capacity, and we're down here, so makes complete sense. But if we look at this class 3 and say this is our maximum capacity, we're headed back to that pretty quickly. And so we're only down about 4% of that maximum capacity. If we look at class 1 utilization across the nation, it was 25.9. That was down a little bit, heavy in the southeast. Class 3 is always hard to look at because we're depooling class 4, then class 3 has to go up, and Minnesota, Wisconsin was 92.4. I mean, that's going to be the highest across. California is also high at 73.8 because they pulled all that class 4 out. Class 4 is very low in most places, I would expect, except for the Northeast, which does not depool anything. Surprisingly, Arizona has got 30% of their milk going into class 4, and that's another one that surprises me a little bit. Fat values came down a little bit. Last month they were 4.27, this time 4.25, but again, very strong. Florida is a little under 4. The Northwest is always the highest at 4.44, so very strong fat. Protein numbers are also very strong. We only get those in a few of the regions. Highest is always the Northwest at almost 3.5%. The Northeast is at 3.22. So this next week is going to be not as busy as the following week. We're going to have a global dairy trade and the national dairy sales report with the advanced prices at about all. That's the following week when we start getting the milk production report and the cold storage report. So that's going to be the busy week.